Welcome, everyone, to episode 63, Eat the Change, Build a Conscious Company. I can't wait to tell you about our special guest today, Seth Goldman. But first, I want to welcome you to the show, episode 63. Make sure you tell us where you're from in the chat. We are so thrilled. I want to take one moment and thank all of you who reached out and helped us just earn a wonderful award, independent award, as one of the top 10 podcasts for CMOs. That was a huge surprise last week. It really made me smile. And all of you really timed it well because it was the week before my birthday. So again, thank you all for that. It really meant a lot to me. And also coming from a thought leader such as Drew Neisser, it meant a lot to me. So let's talk today about what's going on. We've got a couple of other announcements. One is, we are the Mindful Marketer crew here, along with my producer, Marissa Callie, and Bill and Alex Connolly. And we believe in the spirit of Dana, which is a Sanskrit and Pali term for generosity. So if you feel generous, I'm going to ask you a favor. We broadcast this not only on LinkedIn Live, but also on all of the popular podcast channels. So if you do feel generous and have a spirit of Dana, I'm asking you to leave us a very positive review on your favorite podcast channel, especially on Apple Podcasts. So yes, we love reviews and we would love your feedback. Now on to the show. Virtue signaling, greenwashing, and empty brand promises. You and I have all heard those terms. We've seen them with a number of brands, and many of us have become suspicious of these brands who claim to be conscious companies or sustainable innovators. Thankfully, there are people such as Seth Goldman who are conscious capitalists who mean business. And people like Seth have started this movement many years ago. We started to see about 15 years ago, conscious capitalists such as Seth and John Mackey of Whole Foods Market, Nick Jammett, the co-founder of Sweet Green, and Blake McCoxey of Tom's Shoes lead the path for all of us. It's been an exciting time in the world of business. Today, Seth is active on many fronts. He was the co-founder of Honest Tea, which was then sold to the Coca-Cola company. And today, he is the chairman of the board of Beyond Meat and also the co-founder of Plant Burger and Eat the Change. I am such a fan. Let's welcome Seth Goldman.
Hi there,
Good
Lisa.
afternoon, Seth.
Great to be with you.
Likewise, where does this show find you today?
I'm in Bethesda, Maryland. This is the office where Honest Tea was based for at least 12, 13 years. And once I was told Coca-Cola I was going to be moving on, they decided to move the staff down to Atlanta. And so I took over the lease. And so this is the same office where we built one great iced tea brand. And I guess we'll look to build another.
Yes, I know. We are on the heels of an exciting launch. I didn't want to wait until the end of the show to mention that. You've got a new product coming out. Do you want to tell us about it?
Sure. So as I referred to, Honest Tea, Coca-Cola announced they were going to be discontinuing Honest Tea later this year. And, the Eat the Change is all about climate-friendly and nutrient-dense food and food in its whole form. And so we were busy selling our mushroom jerky and our carrot chews. And then Coca-Cola, when they announced they were discontinuing Honest Tea, we realized that the important work Honest Tea had started was going to be undone. And it was important to our consumers. It was important to the supply chain, the tea farms, and to the retailers that we continue that work. And so we decided on June 6th that we were going to re-enter the iced tea market, or enter for this brand, and we will be in production in early September. So it's a very fast turnaround. What for us is just a super exciting opportunity. The brand is called Just Iced Tea, and it's going to be organic and fair trade certified. And we're just thrilled to see the kind of response it's already getting from retailers we've shown it to.
Well, I'm excited for you. And also, before we dive in here for the next half hour, I want you to know we have Latha joining us from India today, and a gentleman or a gentle person joining us from New York City.
Nice.
And Nairobi. We have someone from Nairobi, Kenya. So thankfully, we will be addressing a lot of questions along the way. Now, Seth, I also want to ask you, I'm a big fan of establishing common definitions. So could we start by hearing your definition of what is a conscious business?
Yeah, for me, it's all about the direct impact of the business. Look, I think charity is great, and I encourage everyone who can to, donate to causes they care about. But all the businesses I've been involved in, the product we make, the formulation, the design, the nutrition have the impact embedded in it. And we always talked about with Honest Tea, the mission is in the bottle. It is brewed into the product. So if we care about health, let's make sure our product is healthy. Let's not give away. I mean, it's great if you can give away, donations too, but let's start by offering products that provide essential nutrients to people, or at least avoid, detrimental nutrients. Let's cut down on the sugar and the calories. Let's find ways to include useful ingredients. And then looking at the impact of the sourcing, with tea being a great example. So tea is one of the world's least expensive commodities. And our point of view is we can offer some of the world's highest quality tea for just pennies a bottle. But let's make sure let's invest in organic so that we can make sure these pristine and fragile ecosystems are protected. They're not exposed to tons of chemical pesticides and fertilizers that will, really damage the ecosystem and the flora and fauna. And then let's think about the workers involved. So as I said, tea is an inexpensive ingredient. It's grown in some of the poorest countries in the world, countries like India, China, and Mozambique. Let's make sure we can invest in that supply chain. So let's make sure the workers are paid a living wage. Let's make sure that there is no child labor or prison labor involved. And then let's take a portion of our purchases and then reinvest those into those supplier communities so that they get to decide how to invest them. And often we find them investing in education or healthcare. And all of this is done as a market efficient model. So we're not asking the consumer to, make a separate donation. We just offer a product that we think tastes great, is attractively packaged and branded, and has the impact embedded in it. So when you have that kind of business, the consumer might decide to buy us because they appreciate our causes, but they might just buy us because they like the taste. And either way, the impact still happens.
I love that, Seth. And to give you my laconic version of what you said would be creating business ecosystems that are a force for good. Could we use that one? I just made that up, by the way.
It is, but it's the key there is that it's the business itself. And like I say, I want to distinguish that just from a charity model, because someone could say, well, we're selling a product that kills people, but then we're donating our profits to a worthy cause, and that's
like a tobacco company.
Yeah,
like a
exactly.
Tobacco company. Yeah.
Or frankly, there's a lot of food companies in this country that also sell food that's not really that healthy. And so to me, I would look at they should not overlook the impact of the product they're selling.
That's very helpful. And how much do you feel like you're a trailblazer compared to 15 or 18 years ago when you just started to appear on the landscape known as being a conscious capitalist?
Well, this really is a movement, and you can go back even, decades. And there have been people who have a view of business, playing a constructive role in society. So I'm glad and honored to be part of this movement. And I think we've certainly done, taken some first steps around, certainly with respect to tea. We were the first to make organic bottled tea and the first to make fair trade bottled tea. And then with Beyond Meat, we were the first to bring a plant-based meat alternative to the meat section of the store. So that was a breakthrough as well. And that helped democratize that category. And even with Plant Burger, what we're doing is trying to take a burgers and fries concept and just make it accessible, and fun as a plant-based concept. So there's the good news is, or maybe it's bad news, there's so many places where business can be more conscious in its approach. And so we're doing everything we can to push on all the different buttons we can.
And we got a great question from Latha, and I don't know if we even have enough time today to get all the answers to this one, but it's quite an interesting existential view here. Is being a capitalist the right mindset as an entrepreneur?
Well, it's funny. My mindset is as an activist. So I think about what are the causes that I care about. And then for me, being a capitalist is the vehicle to address those causes. So for some people, being a capitalist works. But if you start with the activist perspective, it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. I think you can be an activist and choose capitalism as your vehicle. If you're only a capitalist, it might help you launch a business, but it might not help that business create a positive impact. So I would never encourage someone to divorce the two, because then you could have
helpful.
You have activism without a business agenda, and that doesn't succeed. Or you have capitalism without a conscience, and then that is damaging to the world.
Thank you for distinguishing that.
Sure.
And one of the things that I do when I'm advising CEOs and their leadership teams, and I can't tell you how many companies right now are approaching me and saying, this is the time for us to reimagine who we can be as an organization.
That's great.
Where do we start? Our old strategic plan is dull and boring and uninspiring to our stakeholders.
Yeah.
And one of the best things we can do, and I learned this from my friend Chip Conley of Joie de Vivre hotel fame and Airbnb advisor, is he creates these dyads with his team members, and they literally sit and go through multiple rounds with each other asking, who are we? Who are we? And getting that identity conversation going is the first step in reimagining a new future. We also have a question that came in. I got so many questions for you, Seth, before the show. Missy Walker, a fractional CMO, Missy Walker asked, is there a time it doesn't make sense to build a conscious company? There's a little Janusian thinking to throw into the Friday afternoon mix here.
It depends on the person, right? If someone's out just to make money, then it could make sense. My point of view is I'm certainly not content and most people in the world, by the way, are not content just chasing dollars. Like even if that's all you do, at a certain point, it gets to a place where all right, what else is there to life? It's hollow. So from my point of view, it always makes sense to embed impact. There's certainly certain industries where it's going to be more connected. So, obviously someone who's in accounting, for example, you may not get as many opportunities to insert a mission into your work, but you could think about, well, can I help accounting for organizations you care about? With respect to food and consumer products, my point of view is it's almost table stakes now. You can't really launch a new brand if it's impact neutral. You've got to find a way to make it be about more than just moving cases.
Yes, and I also want to ask people here in the chat to leave some comments for us, because one of the things I'd love to know from our audience is, are there any challenges you've been facing to build that conscious company? There are challenges. What have you found to be some of the challenges in the earlier years, Seth?
Well,
maybe in your earlier years, now that this is your fourth or fifth company that you've really helped to activate.
Yeah, there are always challenges. I mean, and so look, building a company on its own without a mission in it is hard enough. That just start there. When we were growing Honest Tea, we had to figure out distribution, and that was a brutal part of it because we didn't, the regular distributors didn't want to carry us. And most of the distributors carried products like Snapple or Arizona, which were super sweet. And we'd go in with our less sweet iced tea, let alone organic and fair trade. And they're like, oh, no, that's not for us. And so, those parts are hard just for any startup. And then obviously to add in that sourcing piece and of course the margins just makes it harder. But, this is all part of the building. I am a little, I don't want to say I'm insensitive, but when people tell me how hard it is, it's like, yeah, no, that's what that's why we're entrepreneurs. If it were easy, people would have already have done it, or the big companies would have done it. So yes, it's all hard. Raising money is hard. Finding distribution, finding production, right now. So we're launching this iced tea line. We got to make sure the packaging is available, and finding packaging in the pandemic makes it even harder. There's really very little about this is easy, except for being motivated. The motivation to me comes easily because I know the issues that are out there. I know, I see the dietary and health trends in the United States, which are horrific. I see what's going on with our climate. That's, tragic and urgent. And so the motivation comes easily. All the rest is work, but that gives me a reason to go to the office every day.
Yes, and there's certainly such a receptivity to the kinds of products that I see you getting behind now. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a different time. My curiosity is around picking a cause, putting your stake in the ground.
Yeah,
I was sitting here like I love spending hours and hours getting ready for these shows, and I kept asking myself, okay, what causes are these brands really advancing? And I came up with like 10. and I said, okay, well, that's just unbearable. There's no way Seth is going to be able to address childhood obesity, cancer prevention, adult longevity, birth rates, mortality rates, global warming, children's health, and environmental issues. Like there's no way. Because if you woke up in the morning, like if this is Lisa, if I woke up in the morning thinking that I am going to tackle all those issues, I think my head would explode.
But that's the beauty of it. You can't prioritize them all, but you can address all of them. And that was just to go over to Beyond Meat for a second. That was always what was so satisfying is we knew if we could make a product that could help replace animal beef on the plate, we'd be doing, really important things for the health of the consumer, for the ecosystem, and by the way, for the animals too. And we don't have to choose which one, like all three of those are, and then of course, resource constraints, there's a lot of other things. But that's the beauty of this. When you embed the mission in the product, you really do. And I don't, look, I don't get up every day reading about obesity rates and say, I've got to go do something about it. I may get motivated one day by climate change. I'll see, flooding in Kentucky and say, we have to find a way to shift this. And so, for a period of weeks, I may be more motivated by that, but it doesn't mean that the impact on the consumer goes away. And so to me, that is what keeps it fresh, invigorating. And by the way, helps you attract diverse employees too, because different incoming employees care differently about different things. And they may want to lean into one particular cause or another. And, we can work on multiple levels because our products do have such the impact is so deeply embedded in what we're doing.
That makes more sense. And as we learn in mindfulness and other modalities of philosophy, we are so interconnected, and these causes are very interconnected as well.
Yeah.
I reached a certain age this past year, and things like my cholesterol scores and my calcium scores suddenly changed.
Yeah.
And I watched the seminal documentary Forks Over Knives.
Yes. Yeah.
Rocked my world. My cholesterol has dropped 109 points.
Wow.
And I started a few other things that are non-pharmacological. And I really feel great. And so
Good.
I am a walking
wonderful
testimonial for some of the causes that you're behind as well.
That's wonderful.
So yeah, I mean, it's amazing to live in these times and to have so much scientific data supporting the things that we're pursuing.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's super easy to get depressed and hopeless when you look at what's going on in the world. But like you say, there are changes, even if it happens sort of one person at a time, that can be really motivating and exciting. And to me, I lean into that much more.
I agree. And one of the other questions I wanted to ask you is around scaling. So, of the portfolio of companies in which you are very active, can you help us understand currently the smallest size company? And
Sure.
I trust that Beyond Meat is the larger of the organization. Right. But in terms of number of employees, or because I have a follow-up question to that.
Sure. So Eat the Change is the smallest. I started it really in 2020, and I was the first. There was just one employee. Today we have we're hiring actively, so we're at about 10, and we'll probably be around 15 by the end of the year. So we are growing quickly, and we'll do around $3 to $4 million in sales this year. A company like Beyond Meat has over 1,000 employees around the world, and we'll do around $500 million in sales this year. So very different scale. Obviously, Beyond Meat's a public company. Eat the Change is a small, privately funded company. Plant Burger, we have over 100 employees, a lot of whom are restaurant employees, with our 12 restaurants, and the sales will be around $10 million this year. So a lot of different levels of growth. And of course, beyond Honest Tea, when we sold to Coca-Cola, we had about 140 employees. And by the time I left, we were, doing over or around $200 million in sales.
Very helpful. Now,
Sure.
Over that time, you have a lot of conversations about efficiencies and scalability. So we got a question in from the CEO of Farmside Kitchen, Meg Schiffman. And her question, yes, Meg and I have been co-conspirators, collaborators for a while. So she was asking, as a business grows and it scales, what are you doing to ensure that the team members understand, appreciate, and live the values and mitigate the chance that they are diluted over time?
Yeah. So one of the key things is how you start. And so who are the first employees you hire, and how do you bring them in, and how do you continually ingrain in them the culture of the business? And so, in a sense, the pandemic, as horrific and terrible as it was, and I guess even still is, it gave us the luxury of being able to grow really deliberately. And so we had just a very few employees, and even though we weren't in the office all together, we would have regular meetings, and the meetings were obviously catching everybody up on things, but they also gave us the chance to talk as a group. And I realized that even though Honest Tea, we were all in the office together, what we've been able to do at Eat the Change has actually provided more personal interactions than when we were in the office. For example, every Monday we start with a question, and a different employee assigns a question every Monday. So, and the question, it could be, what was the favorite vacation you ever took, or which is a food that you like, or if you could be anywhere in history, what would you do? And different people moderate the question. And it's just a chance to really get to know each other and share what we're about. But in terms of the mission and the impact, we also use that occasion to have those discussions and make sure people really understand that, because, you can get all excited about the mission, and then you have to go back to business, and it may just be, cutting vegetables. So you don't necessarily feel it that way. So you really want to keep that in the forefront of the consumer's mind, and the employee's mind as well.
What challenges have you faced with those protocols and practices as you and I and everyone is still figuring out the new world of work and the distributed models that we are designing on the fly?
Yeah. Well, we still are very deliberate about being in this office space together. So we do have an office. No one is required to be in the office all the time, but is strongly encouraged. And so, we really do sometimes, whether it's hosting a lunch here for the employees or doing a tasting or looking at marketing material, there are certain parts of interactions that happen in person. You just lose them online. And I think it'd be a mistake for a company to assume they're going to get all the same effectiveness and teamwork done virtually. So for us, one way to overcome that is really insisting on we don't, like I say, we don't force anybody, but we really emphasize the effectiveness of being able to make decisions in person together.
Yes, and stay tuned, everybody, because it is a new world of work, and you're going to face different issues when you find out, oh, I found a superstar living in Iowa.
Yeah.
Do we decline hiring this person when there are two jobs? I was at the talk by Jerome Powell up at the Fast Company Innovation Festival, and he said, for every unemployed person, there are 2 open jobs. So how do we address that by making our company the most attractive it can be to people who align with our values?
That's hard to do. Yeah.
It definitely is. And I'd love to transition here in our final moments to the role of marketing leaders in building and scaling these conscious companies in your portfolio and career. Describe for us, if you will, a marketing leader you worked with or you might be working with who you really depend on to help build this conscious company and what they bring and contribute.
Yeah. So all the brands that I'm involved in really emphasize authenticity in their ingredients and authenticity in their sourcing and in their function. So I really want to see a marketer who lives this, who believes in this. I'm skeptical of the marketer for hire. And so I'll admit to having a bias. If I'm hiring and I see this person has worked in large companies that I don't think as highly of, it's like, oh, that's not, they may say, well, that's a great credential. I may say, oh, that means someone who actually is just kind of mercenary and doesn't care, isn't committed to the values the same way. So I really do want to see someone who's lived these values too, right? Even if they're freshly out of college, what is their resume? What were they doing in college? If they were active in student groups, that's a good credential. If they were just sort of partying, all right, well, they still might care about it. They still might be a marketing talented person, but they may not be a good fit for a group of activists who are really trying to change things.
So really, you're looking for evidence of their activist mindsets.
Yeah, it's an authentic commitment to it. Everybody can dress up a resume and make it look relevant. I want to see the action. Anyone
in particular you want to give a shout out to that you think has truly lived your values?
We've had so many wonderful marketers, people, and I go back to the Honesty Field marketing team. This was a group of people who were true believers, and also, by the way, really lived the culture too. So we were a scrappy organization, and they would share hotel rooms, which people frown on. But frankly, here at Eat the Change, we share hotel rooms also. Like, this is not. If you're a startup, you don't have the. If you're spending a lot of money on hotel room, single rooms for everybody, it's like, well, how are you going to build your brand? So, I just love, people who sort of have that challenger mindset. To me, that's the key characteristic that's defined the standout employees. And it covers all your behavior. You can't have a challenger mindset and then go treat, yourself on the company budget to, a fancy dinner or go stay in a fancy. If you're a challenger mindset, you're like, we're going to go stay at the Hampton Inn. We'll split rooms. And we're going to get after it early. We'll drive. Maybe it's a longer drive. We're going after it. And the challenger mindset means, this is not given to me. This is something I have to fight for. And I want and I'm proud to say all my partners in this business and employees really have that challenger mindset. And that's how you become a successful challenger.
Yes, I love that term, challenger mindset. I think it's synonymous with resourcefulness.
It
right?
is, but it's also
resourcefulness.
synonymous with disruption too, right? So even the folks at Beyond Meat, it's a bigger company, but they're challengers. We're challenging the meat industry. And so we can't just sort of expect the world to line up for us. It's our job to bring them to this category and to make it happen.
Understood completely. Yes, it takes a certain personality to be able to do that, because I can only imagine that the lobbyists and the meat industry is, let's just say, well entrenched, no pun intended. So yeah, you're not going to make everybody happy as a challenger mindset person, and it's not your job to make everybody happy.
That's right. Yep.
Talk to us about a couple of first steps that our audience can take to be, especially our marketing followers and community, to really build and cultivate a conscious company.
Yeah, like I said, I go back to the product. So really do some serious thinking about the product. And by the way, it's never going to be perfect. And I'll just, self-confess here. So Honest Tea, I can say great things about our organic sourcing, about our fair trade, about our nutritional profile, the lower calories, but I can't say great things about our packaging. We sell single-use containers, most of which don't get recycled. And that's not a good thing. And so, you can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. You've got to find as many hopefully your good outweighs the bad. If it's vice versa, then, you may want to do a little more reflecting about what you're trying to do, but make sure you can understand the positive impacts and how can you amplify them, but really look at every aspect, certainly and follow what I always say is follow the money. So where are you spending most of your money as a business? Because that's usually a good indicator of what your impact is. It's where the most resources are going. And then the other thing that I think is a great first step, if you're an entrepreneur about to enter a business, think about the causes you care about and think about the nonprofit organizations that are addressing them. And then think about, okay, so those are really interesting causes. Is there a way for me to address those same causes in a for-profit mode? And it's just a very obvious example would be, a group like the ASPCA, Advancement for this Protection of Animals. Well, they protect animals, but a company like Beyond Meat, you could argue, is also helping to protect animals, right? Because fewer of them are killed. So, it's a very different organization, different approach to solving a problem, but a lot of the similar impacts. And so, impact doesn't only have to happen in the nonprofit world. And just to think about how you flip that.
Thank you. And you bring gifts to the nonprofit world as well in terms of systems thinking, challenger mindset, metrics, and so on. Well, Seth, I can't wait to talk with you again, especially post-product launch of Just
Yes, we'll share a bottle of tea.
I know. Well, we have the Marketing Growth Leaders CMO community, which is nationwide, and we meet often in the Washington, D.C. area. So maybe we'll have a taste testing party and invite one of your key people in to tell us the story behind the Challenger brand and Challenger mindset of the team. So Seth, wonderful to see you again, and please come back and see us.
Thank you, Lisa.
Well, friends, it's time for the mindful moments. Mindful moments. I had so many great takeaways from today. The first one is that before you move into the world of building a conscious company or wanting to rebuild your company in a more conscious way, start by asking who you are. And I thought that was very telling. Are you a capitalist first and an activist perhaps, or do you lead by being an activist? And be very honest with yourself about that. Number two, make sure that you never lose your mojo and your purpose as you grow and scale. Seth offered a great tip on their weekly meetings. They always start the meeting by asking a fun and provocative question, which is delegated to different people for each meeting. And third, make sure that when you are hiring, look for specific behaviors and actions that those candidates may have exhibited even before they started their careers that demonstrate that they have and embody the challenger mindset. Some great tips there today. Well, we've hit up our time today. I want to remind you of a couple things before you leave. Join me on September 2nd when we're going to talk about how you need to lead marketing differently during a recession or a downturn. I'm not here to talk to you or debate whether we are in a downturn, whether we are now in the new normal of a tumultuous economy, or whether we are in a recession. But I do know one thing, downturns are natural and you need to be ready for them. And finally, if you're watching this, we invite all of you in the senior marketing role or CEO role to join us at the CMO's Leading Innovation Conference. We now have only 2 seats remaining for the conference in Charleston, South Carolina, November 3rd and 4th. So you can see the link there or go to lisanirell.com to the blog and you can read about it and register. So until I see you all again in September, stay well, stay mindful, and be a challenger.